Alrighty. Now, what I've done is I've broken this review, which is going to be extraordinarily like tomorrow's test. Oh, I meant to have you do it on clicker. Oh well. What I've done is I have hidden every question so that we can focus on the directions, something I don't think we did well enough last time. So, believe it or not, the problem is all up here. It's going to start out like this every time. We're going to talk about the directions. Someone is going to tell me what the directions are going to be asking us to do, and then we'll look at the problem. So there's more than enough stuff to go around. So you might as well, as soon as you know something, raise your hand and get it out of the way, because I'm going to be talking to everybody today. All right. Solve the right triangle shown in the figure. Solve the right triangle. What do you think this problem is going to look like? Drake? It's going to have a right triangle. Now, before I uncover this, we've only used three things to solve right triangles. We've used law of cosines, law of sines, and SOHCAHTOA. However, it tells us it's a right triangle, so which of those three things do you think we're going to use? SOHCAHTOA. Right there. Boom. You read the directions, you should know it's going to be showing me a right triangle, and I should be using SOHCAHTOA to solve it. There we go. Right triangle. We're looking for the two angles. Oh no, it gives us an angle. We're looking for the last angle and the two sides. Raise your hand if you think you can walk me through how to solve this. And remember, if you know how to do it, you might want to volunteer early. How can I at least get started solving it? Shelby. It is the biggest angle. That's true. C will be the biggest side. Let's see. Is that you're right. That allows me to cross off this one because C is not the biggest. And it allows me to cross off this one because C is not the biggest. Very good. Yes, sir. Why can we eliminate C? What is the angle on B? Very good. By subtraction. And therefore side B has to be bigger than side A, which is not the case here. According to this, excellent observation. Angle A is smaller than angle B, but it suggests that side A is bigger than side B, which is a direct contradiction of the law of sines. So we could actually solve this one as C without doing a single piece of math. Excellent. Let's assume that tomorrow we can't just make those assumptions. How would I have solved for the missing signs here? Zach? I could have used the law of sines, or since we're going to have to do that with the one later on, you're absolutely right. You absolutely could. But what's SOHCAHTOA? That's the word now. How could I have solved this? Go. You don't have two sides yet. Once you have two of the sides, you can use Pythagorean theorem. How can I find one of the sides? Tangent. So you want to find which angle are we starting from? B. So he said, let's use tangent from angle B. Tangent of 57 equals opposite over adjacent. No. What did you say? Okay, must have been funny. So anyway, we're going to multiply by A, divide by tan 57. I'm just going to let you have that joke. So that'd be tan, not yet. It'd be 45.7 divided by tan of 57. Make sure you're in degree mode. A lot of people, well, I'm not trying to send a bad omen, and it is, by the way, 29 point, well, it looks like their decimal's off by a little bit, but oh well. Oh, that's because it's 0.2, not 0.7, isn't it? My bad. 0.2. So that would have led you to the right answer. A lot of people are going to miss questions on this test because you're not going to remember to switch back and forth in your mode. If you are plugging, the only time you have to worry about the mode, degree, or radian is if you're using trig. If you're using sine, cosine, tangent, inverse, or regular, that's the only time you have to worry about the mode. If you're putting in a degree, or looking for a degree, you're in degree mode. If you're putting in radians or getting radians back, you need to be in radian mode. So it might change every single question. So you just have to pay attention to what you're doing in the problem. Good job. Any further questions on problem number 1? Okay. Question number 2. Use the dot product to determine whether the vectors are parallel, orthogonal, or neither. What's this going to look like? Someone who hasn't spoken yet? It could be. Holly. Exactly. It's going to have 2 vectors, I and j, because that's how you take dot products. Now, we never even talked about parallel. So, only thing you really have to worry about is it going to be orthogonal or is it going to be neither? You don't even have to worry about the parallel option. I'll just tell you right now, it's not going to be. So, if they're orthogonal, what will my dot product equal? 0. Very good. That was the key from that section. And if it's not 0, it'll be neither. So, shabam. All right. I don't know what that means. So the dot product, I values, 2 times 1. J values, 1 times negative 2. What's my dot product? So what am I? Very good. You weren't even here that day. You are, apparently. Orthogonal. Questions about how to solve that problem. Dot product is just the product of the i's plus the product of the j's. Add them together. We are rocking and rolling. Okay. Write the vector v in terms of I and j whose magnitude and direction are given. What is this problem going to look like? Sorry, you've already talked, sir. You've already talked, man. Seamus. That's polar coordinates. And it's pretty much going to be that, except instead of getting the radius, it's going to give us the magnitude. Yeah. And who remembers, once we have a radius, let's actually, the reason that's okay what he said is because these are the 2 sections we put together, because you solve them the same way. If they give you the radius in an angle and ask you for rectangular coordinates, which is what I believe that you were thinking, you solve it the same way as if they give you the magnitude and direction and ask you for the i's and j's. What are the formulas to solve this problem? Yes, ma'am. Very good. It is magnitude, which I guess I'll just call v, cosine theta for I, magnitude times sine of theta for j. Again, make sure you're in degree mode. So here we go. H times cosine 30 is 6 point blah blah blah, which, now remember, these i's do not stand for imaginary. So is that equal to 4 radical 2, 4 radical 3, or, well, it's obviously not 4. I'm guessing it's 4 radical 3 since there's 2 of those. 4 radical 3, yes it is. So that means it has to be, which answer? It has to be A. Yeah, right there. It's the only one with a positive 4 radical 3. Very good. Questions from that problem? Okay. We're going to keep going. Solve the triangle. Round the lengths to the nearest tenth and angle measures to the nearest degree. What's this going to look like? Come on, this is an easy one. Jump on it. No, 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 no. I didn't hear that. Savannah. It's going to be a triangle. Now, does it say it's going to be a right triangle?
No.
I'm still talking to Savannah.
Oh.
No. So, what two ways have I shown you to solve non-right triangles? Still Savannah. That's right. Law of sines and law of cosines. So before I uncover this, how will I know? I know, you're getting like the full enchilada here. How will I know which one to use? That's right. Law of sines, I'm going to have an angle and a side opposite that angle to set up my proportion. If I don't have that, it's going to have to be law of cosine. And dang, it didn't even give me a picture. But did it give me two of the same letter so that I could use law of sines? No, it didn't. So therefore, I have to use law of cosines. I could draw it to make myself feel better, but I don't need to feel better. So, well, the first thing we're going to find is little a, and it looks like it's unique across the board. No triangle shouldn't be an issue here. It'll pretty much tell you when it's a no triangle situation. All right, here we go. So, I don't know why I squared that. That's not going to be easy. Law of cosines. Little side A, little side B, little side C, minus 2B, C, cosine of the angle, and punch it in. 49 and 121, 170 I think. 77 times 2, cosine 127. What can you absolutely not do? You cannot subtract 170 minus 154. Very good. Please remember that. So, what? Oh, yeah. 7. All right. So here we go. 170. Also, I just kind of did these in my head. Please make sure those are right, I guess. I don't want to do the whole problem and then realize I was wrong. Minus 154 cosine 127. Shabam. Now, is that my answer?
No.
What do I have to do? Take the square root. Therefore, which answer is it? It is C. Little a is 16.2. Yay! Very good. Question. Another one, same kind of deal. Now, it had the. Sometimes it'll have directions and then two problems back to back underneath it. So this must have been one of those. So it's the same directions. We know we're still solving. What do I use to solve when I have three sides, no angles? Law of cosines. Very good. I'm looking around and noticing that all of them have at least two of the same angles. So which angle do y'all want to start with? I was going for an A, B, or C. A, all right. You could. The law of sines determines that the bigger the side, the bigger the angle. So which answer has A as the biggest, B is the second biggest, and C is the smallest? And that's it. Man, life is so good when we remember those little tricks. And even if you hadn't remembered that, no big deal. We still would have set, I'll just set it up and you could have finished it, I guess. If we started out looking for side A, so that would be, what am I doing? I know what A is. B squared plus C squared minus 2B C cosine of A, which was, we didn't know. And there you go. And you could have solved that for angle A, found that it was 127, and then done law of sines to find angle B or C. Very good, very impressive. Questions? Joey, because I know you like to participate. I'm not going to count that as your input. That's just a good observation. You want to participate again? Other questions on this problem? How I would have done something, how we knew something, anything like that. Okay. Number 6. Find the area of the triangle having the given measurements. Round to the nearest square unit. By now, yes, I know. It's going to be a triangle or something like it. What two formulas have we used so far that talk about area of the triangle? I'll give you a hint. It's not going to be a 1/2 based on type problem. What's that? We've used hero, which uses what? All three sides? So it's either going to give us all three sides, in which case we're going to use heroes, or it'll be which formula? Here I've used your notes. Josh, you can give me the other one. This will count for your entire turn. Never mind. Colton. Very good. It'll be 1/2 the two sides that it gives us, sine of the angle. It's either going to give us two sides and an angle or three sides, and that will determine which formula we use. It gives us two sides and an angle, so we're going to use Colton's formula. So, Colton, how would that fill out in my problem here? Don't fall in love with the letters. Remember, that's why, the formula was written 3 times. Don't fall in love with the letters and think A has to go here, B has to go here, and C has to go here. It's really the two sides that you have go here, and the angle that you have goes here. Please try to remember that. There were 3 formulas for that, 3 different formulas for that same area equation, and we talked about that. There's all the same thing. Just remember that two sides and the angle between those sides. So 1/2 times 7 times 5 times sine 115. Someone. What was it? 15.8. So I'm thinking D. And there you go. Very good. Questions on that problem? All right. Well, you are off the hook. Good job. Next problem. Use a polar coordinate system to plot the point with the given polar coordinates. What is it going to provide for us? What is this polar coordinate of which it speaks? Austin. For us to, yeah, that's what our answers are going to look like. You're right. It's going to give us the graph with the circles, and we have to figure out which point is it. But what polar coordinate, what form will that polar coordinate be in? Very good. It's going to give us some r theta and ask us to pick out which point it is. There it is. R theta, and we have to find the correct polar coordinate. Now, 9 pi over 4. What's the problem with 9 pi over 4? It's greater than 2 pi. So we have to find a coterminal angle with that. So we subtract 2 pi, and what's that going to be? Some of you guys are getting wicked fast at that. Kudos. So that's the same thing as 2 comma pi over 4. So 2 pi over 4. Which answer has it in this quadrant? D. Oh, I'll just do that. D. There it is. Now, just a quick little review, because I think there's only one of these. If the angle had been negative, how would that have flipped my point? Over the x-axis down to here. If my radius had been negative, how would that have flipped my point? Over the origin to the complete opposite quadrant. Very good. Things to remember. Hint, 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 bloody hint. I'm pretty sure yours tomorrow has a double negative on it. So you're going to have to do double flippage. It means if they both had negative, you'd flip over the x-axis, then you'd flip over the origin, and your point would have been here. Someone asked me if it mattered which order you did it in, and I want to say at some point I thought it did, but I couldn't think of an example. But I always do angle or radius last, just in case. Yep, that's the truth. Okay, questions? All right. Find the angle between the given vectors. Round the nearest to the nearest tenth of a degree. Raise your hand and tell me what it's going to provide, what I need to do. Only half of you are left. I think you've already spoken, but. I still think you've already done it. Yes, ma'am. That's right, and then I do what with them? Cos inverse, very good. It's going to give me two vectors. I'm going to find the cosine inverse of the dot product divided by the product of the magnitudes. So here we go. Dot product. Sorry, air bubble in my throat. I values 1 times 4 is 4. Negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. Add those together and the dot product is negative 1. That's right. Addition's awesome today. Oh, okay. Now for the magnitudes. I do Pythagorean theorem. 1 squared plus 1 squared equals u squared. And 4 squared plus 5 squared equals v squared. So I believe this is going to be radical 2 and radical 41. Then I take cosine inverse of that whole thingy. Now you can punch it in all at once, but it's easier parentheses wise to do it one step at a time. Divided by the square root of 2. Second cosine of that equals 96.3 degrees. So see, that's what it's looking like. And yes, it is. Very good. 40% done, and almost half of you have already spoken. That's excellent. This was 6-7. No. Yes. And the other vector stuff is from 6-6. Questions? Number 9. Polar coordinates are given. Find the rectangular coordinates. Ooh. This is the one Seamus spoke up on the first time. I remember. What's going to be given and how do I solve it? What's going to be given and what am I going to use to solve what is given? Yes, ma'am. That's correct. That's correct. And what's it going to provide for you? An r and a theta. That is perfect. It gives you an r and a theta. X equals r cosine theta. Y equals r sine theta. Muy bien. Here we go. Muy, yes. 5 cosine negative 17. Enter. 4.78. Now, hold on. I don't remember which one it was. I want to say going the other direction. Yeah, never mind. It's when you go from rectangular to polar that you have to check the quadrants, but we should be good here. So, positive 4.8, which answer is it? D. Very good. Questions? We'll start having a 5-second volunteer maximum, then I'm going to call on people at random. That'll be fun. Number 10, graph the function. Well, I'll give you a hint. Yes, we've only grabbed one thing in the last chapter, and it was trig. So, what is our problem going to look like? Why would it be asking us to graph trig? What kind of things is it going to be checking for us to know? That's the question for this problem that I need somebody to answer. What is it going to be requiring us to know about our trig functions? Just a few buzz vocab words. Yes, sir. Wait. Yeah, that's right. I said I wouldn't count it. So go. Amplitude, period, phase shift, vertical shift. That's right. That's the kind of thing we're going to need to know. Alrighty. Amplitude is what? 4. Amplitude is 4. Now all of these have the same amplitude, so unfortunately that doesn't help us. Now of course, if you were using ACT kind of things and thinking process elimination here, and if you were to guess, which one of these would you chuck out if you were guessing? Yes, the one of these things is not like the other campaigns from Sesame Street. But maybe not. So let's look at the period and make sure. Who can tell me the formula for period? If you found this in your notes, this is an easy way to get off the hook. Formula for period. I want somebody to get off the hook here. You're already off it. So. It's a race. Yes, ma'am. 2 pi over b. And what is my b value here? The number being multiplied by x. What's being multiplied by x? 2 pi. So what's 2 pi over 2 pi? 1. So that means these things are doing one whole revolution in 1 unit, which means it's going really darn fast. So it's going to be A, B, or C. Looks like they have all the same period. Dang. We're going to have to do this by phase shift. Wow, these things look like they're pretty darn similar. Phase shift. What's the formula for phase shift? Kayla, since you're already there, what was it? It was C over B, remembering to change the sign on your C. So, that's going to be negative 3 pi over 2 pi, which reduces to negative 3 over 2. Now, these things look very similar. That's what you always do for phase. Remember, like horizontal shifts, if it's positive, you go left, same difference. So here we go. We're probably going to have to actually graph a point of this. Where does sine normally start? Anybody can answer this. Well, sine normally starts at 0, right? Cosine starts at the max, sine starts at the 0. So we're going to be at a 0 here, okay? And then we're going to shift it left 3 halves. Oh man, these are in pi over 2s. Oh, that's not cool. All right, 3 halves. Well, this is approximately 1.57, so it should be right about here. So it actually should go through that point, which all of them do. Well, that's awesome. Now, it's negative. So is it going to go down or up first? It's going to go down first. This one goes up. This one goes up. This one goes down from that negative 1.5 part. So that should be enough to take us to our answer right there. I really hope so. Yes, it is. You're going to have to... You're welcome to graph this on your calculator, but you should find that they're going to look pretty darn similar. So you're going to need to know how to go to that initial point and whether to go up or down, and it should be good enough. Tomorrow, you may be able to do more process elimination. Perhaps the amplitude might help you cross off an answer. And then the period. Here, the amplitudes were all the same. The period only crossed off 1. And the phase shift, the only way the phase shift is going to help you is if you know what to do when you get there. Because trig, it's a periodic thing. So phase shift is going to be really hard to see since it just keeps repeating itself. So you're going to have to know how to be able to mark it over and then go up or down. Questions? All right. If there's no questions, we'll keep going. That's probably the hardest one we've done so far. Hopefully there's another one like it, but I don't think there is. Determine the amplitude or period as requested. Amplitude and period, that sounds familiar. What is it going to be providing me here? Yes, ma'am. That's right, for a trig function. Very good. It'll be giving me the y equals for a trig function, and I have to find whichever piece they ask me for. And Sarah, since I'm already on you, what is the amplitude of this thing? 1/2. The number in the front. If it was negative 1/2, it'd still be 1/2. And since you already answered that one, and Kayla already answered the formula for how to find a period, I'm just going to jump straight to it. What's my b value here? If the formula for a period is 2 pi over b, what's my b value? 1/2. What's 2 pi divided by 1/2? 4 pi. And the answer for that one is D. Very good. Alright. I believe I still need to talk to 8 of you, 9 of you. And there's 8 questions left, so I'll have to have some two-parters. Questions? Click. Sketch the vector as a position vector and find its magnitude. It wants us to sketch a vector and find the magnitude, so what will it be giving me to work with here? How could I sketch a vector? What would have to be given to me to sketch a vector? Yes, ma'am. I am going to need a graph, but much like a point requires coordinates, what is it going to have to provide for me to be able to graph this? That's right. And what makes up a vector? The i's and j's. It's going to have to give me i's and j's, and then from there I'm going to graph it. So, graphing this thing, am I going to go 3 left or 3 right? Right, so I can immediately cross off A and C, and these two are both the same, so it's going to be that drawing. How do I find the magnitude? How do I find the magnitude of a vector given the i's and j's? This is the second part of this question. It's a get out of jail free card if you still haven't spoken to me yet. Give you a hint. It was the answer to pretty much half the questions you answered in geometry class. What's that? There you go, Jordan. That's all it took. You're off the hook. Pythagorean theorem. 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. Therefore, my magnitude when I solve that will be 5. Oh, damn. Well, whatever. And the answer is B. Awesome. I knocked out an entire table right there. Good job. Boy, you know something. It doesn't matter. Questions? Find the specified vector or scalar. Now this one, I'll be impressed if somebody knows what it's going to be asking me here, because that's kind of a weird way to be asking it. But I'll give somebody a chance. Actually, no. A scalar, well, what do you think the root word behind scalar is? Scale, right. And a scalar is like when you scale something up or scale something down, you either multiply or divide by something. So, James, what do you think it's going to be? Multiplying vectors will only be done via dot product. When it asks for a... What's that? You're right. You're right. But the reason I said this is complicated because I don't think we ever really talked about what scalar meant. Troy, you want to try to get up to here? No, but that would be cool. No, this is going to provide a vector, maybe two. Ij, vector v is 3i minus 7j, something like that. And it'll be asking you to either subtract those vectors, add those vectors, or scale those vectors, like 3v, where you just multiply like that. Is that what you're meaning when you said multiply vectors? Well, then you were right, not wrong there. Oh, dang it, wrong direction. Click, drag, bang. U and v are given. Find the magnitude of v minus u. Or it could have said 3v minus 4u. Something like that. So, v minus u, one of my remaining 7 people, how am I going to subtract v minus u? Give you a hint. If you had a friend named Mike Worms, his name would rhyme with how you solve this problem. Mike Worms. Someone who hasn't spoken yet, raise your hand and tell me. Yes, ma'am. Haven't you already spoken? Fine. Very good. Like terms. V minus u, like terms. Negative 4i, dang it, minus negative 2i. So that's negative 4i plus 2i is negative 2i. Negative 7j minus 21j. So minus a negative will make that plus 14j. How do I find the magnitude? Jordan, you kind of had an easy one, so I'm going to let you say the exact same thing again. How do you find the magnitude? Pythagorean theorem. Very good. A squared plus b squared equals magnitude squared. Or one. Oh, let me do that. Think. Plus 4, so 200. And the square root of 200 reduces to 4 times 50. So I'm guessing it's b. Yay! Or you could have just taken the square root of 200, seen what it was, the decimal, then plugged those in and see which one of them it was. Clever. They probably made it so you couldn't do that by making one of them radical 51. Because these two are going to differ by like decimal points. And that was going to lead you to doubt yourself. Clever test makers. Questions about how we came up with that answer, how we knew to do something, blah, 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 blah. Don't think I don't remember who hasn't spoken yet. Oh, I do. Sabrina, Kaylee, Morgan, Taryn, Denton, and well, Troy and tried, so technically she's half off the hook. Yeah, I remember. So you guys get ready to speak. Number 15. 2 sides in an angle. What is this? SSA? Why would it be telling me this? What kind of questions is it getting me ready for? Why would it bother telling me what it's going to give me in the directions? It would only give me that much detail if this was a complicated potential problem. What is this going to require me to find in my notes? What's that? What do you mean, cosine? Close. Law of cosines is angle side angle. This was, I'll give you a hint, it was from 6.1 part 2. 6.1 part 2, and we dealt with multiple scenarios. Who can tell me what it's going to give me here and what I'll need to do from there? Yes, that was called the ambiguous case. When they give you, and the way I always told my classes was, you know you're going to need it if you could spell a cuss word with those 3 letters. And if you flipped it, you could. Josh, you were in my geometry class. Remember that? You don't remember that? I even wrote it on the board. I can't forget it. Okay. So, very good. You're going to need, it's going to be giving you 2 sides in an angle. I believe there's 2 questions with this one. There are. It's going to give you 2 sides in an angle, and you're going to have to consult that chart and figure out how many solutions there are. And then from knowing how many solutions there are, what are the solutions? So, on the chart, first step. Now, I'm recording this, so you can't say that you didn't remember this. First step to checking these, is it acute or obtuse? It's acute. So you look to one side of the note. Very next thing you should always check, is the side opposite our angle the biggest side? No. You might remember from those notes, if the side opposite our angle is the biggest side, or even tied for being the biggest side, you can immediately conclude one solution. You know, hopefully you're looking at that in your notes. Somewhere where it says A is greater than or equal to B equals one solution. But it's not. So we have to do our test, which is the side. We have to compare the side opposite that angle to the other side times sine of the angle. Remember, this stood for the shortest possible distance that length could be. And our possible scenarios are, if this is smaller than this, then that means this is plenty long, and there's going to be two solutions. If they equal perfectly, it's going to be one solution. And if this is less than this, I did the backwards, then this isn't going to be long enough. No, that's right. This isn't going to be long enough, and therefore render me no solution. What is 3 sine 70, somebody? 2.8. 2.8 is the shortest possible distance that this could be. Does this measure up? No. So what's my answer? No triangle. No triangle. There it is. Bam. Now, hopefully, using a piece of logic here, you actually could have assumed it wasn't B, C, or D if you knew what was going on. The only way you're going to get one triangle while doing this test was if it was a right triangle. Do any of those give you a 90-degree angle? No. Then it couldn't have possibly been one solution. The only way you will ever get one solution in these kinds of problems is if the angle is obtuse, in which case that was one of the two scenarios, or if this side is the bigger side. The side opposite triangle is the bigger side. If neither of those is the case, you have to have a 90-degree angle. So, the answer is X. 17, same kind of thing. It's acute. Our side is once again smaller. Now, you might be thinking, 4 is bigger than 3. Yes, except 4 is not the side opposite of our angle. They switched it up, those clever beasts. They switched it. Now this is the side opposite of our angle. It is still smaller. So, is 3 less than, equal to, or greater than 4 sine 41? It is greater, which means I have how many solutions? Dose. So it has to be B or D. Has to be. Bless you. Now, looking at this, you could technically speaking, bless you again, your next step here should be doing law of sines. But look at the problem before you jump off the deep end of the pool. They give you the same exact angles for both possible answers. So you can assume those are the correct angles because they're given in both answers. So you could actually jump straight into solving for side C. This one right here. So, law of sines says sine of the angle over the side equals sine of the angle over the side. We are looking for C1 and saying which one it gives us. So, 3 times sine 61 equals C times sine 41. Divide by sine 41. And what is C? Was it? Dang, that's neither of them. Stupid me. Thank you. Sine 78. Now what is it? Assuming you do it correctly, what is the answer? 4.5, thus the answer is bravo. Yes, ma'am. Since angle Yep. Man, you guys are smart. I never noticed these things. Good job. That's awesome. Yes, you could have. Going once again back to that fact that the side Has to go opposite the angle of its proportionate size. It had to be B. Very nice. I tip my hat. Very nice. Questions. The thing you should be taking away from this problem. If you see, I'm going to highlight it in pink. If you see that, then it's getting you to do that ambiguous case. That's when you're going to have to look at the chart and figure out the tests. If you see side angle in the directions, you're going to need to do the test. So if someone raises your hand tomorrow and says, how do I know what to do here? And I see that in the directions, I'm going to give you one of these. And I'm going to walk away. And that's it. And you're going to think he's a jerk. And I'm going to think, I told you yesterday. That's how it's going to go down in my mind. Oh, you'll think I'm a jerk. If you don't, there's something wrong with you. Okay, here we go. Number 18. The rectangular coordinates of a point are given. Find the polar coordinates of the point. Express theta in radians. Ugh, radians. Gross. Okay, fine. Rectangular coordinates are given. What's it going to provide for me here? I'm down to like, I think Rachel has spoken enough. Darren, I think you spoke up just a second. You know what? And I appreciate your effort. Denton. Close. Extremely close. That's right. Y over X. So what's it going to give you in the problem? Give you a hint. If you're plugging in Y and X, that's a coordinate, right? It's going to give you a rectangular coordinate, like that one. Very good. And that's what you're going to need to solve it. Theta is going to be tangent of Y over X. You'll have to take inverse. And R is going to be, how do I find R? Jordan, how do I find R? Give you a hint, the same thing you said the last two times. Pythagorean theorem. Very good. So, R. Let's look for that one first. A squared plus B squared. You might notice I just discarded my negatives in Pythagorean theorem. I would advise you to do the same, although you don't have to. So that's 16 times 2, which is 32. 16 times 2, which is 32 again. What's the square root? Dang it, this is our squared. What's the square root of 64? So my answer has to be C or D. Now, it says find it in radians. That's interesting because they didn't do it in radians. I assume that's a joke. Good! Who wanted to do it in radians anyway? Let's do it in degree mode. Actually, we don't even have to do this. Here's the thing. Think about this for a second. Look at the coordinate it gave you. What quadrant is a negative x and negative y in? 3. C or D? Which of those lies in the third quadrant? D. Bang! And you don't have to even punch that stuff in. The answer is D because it has the matching radius and it lies in the correct quadrant. Now what's interesting here is if you had done this, if you punched in tan inverse of that divided by that, which would just be 1, it would tell you 45 degrees. And you'd be like, that doesn't make sense. And you'd be right. And you'd have to think about which quadrant is tangent equal in quadrant 1, and it would be quadrant 3, but that's much easier. Let's do it like that. Questions from this problem? Alrighty. Now, let's say tomorrow you forget that little quadrant thingy, and you jump into this, and you get 45 degrees, and your mind freezes on you. You think, crikey, I do not remember what to do here. He told me, I don't remember. Show your work on paper, and if I see that you got 45 while doing tangent, that's worth 4 out of 5 points on the problem. You did everything right, you just forgot one little thing at the end. Show your work, please. Harder for me to grade if you show your work, but I prefer you make a higher score, I promise. 19. Solve the triangle. What's that? That's right. It's going to be a triangle. What do you think we're going to use to solve this triangle? What? Morgan, what do you think we're going to use to solve this triangle? We've already used SOHCAHTOA. We've already used law of cosines. Doesn't make sense I'd put that on there again. What have we not used that we use to solve triangles? Yes, law of sines. Very good. And sure enough, they give you a side angle combination. We're ready to do the law of sines. First of all, what's our last angle going to be? 40 degrees. Therefore, it has to be B or D. Now, some of you, because you've already said it half a dozen times, are like, I know what the answer is, because law of sines says the bigger the side, the bigger the angle. And you are correct. But for the sake of practice, we're going to go ahead and solve this. I need to find side A. So, sine 35 over 6 equals sine 105 over A. Proportions, people, proportions. Cross multiply. Bang. Clear. 6 times sine 105 divided by sine trace 5. And the answer is 10.1. So therefore the answer is D. Anxious much? Question. If I'm not mistaken, Kaylee, you are forced to answer this last question. I remember. Hopefully it's a hard one. Determine the phase shift. Kaylee, search through your notes and find the formula for phase shift. Kayla's actually already given it to us once. And then Shelby asked, why did you make it negative? But what was the formula for phase shift? Okay, let's start from here. True or false, it had to do with trig functions. Give you a hint, I wouldn't ask you a false question. True or false, it has to do with trig. True, yes. Okay, and the formula for phase shift. Kayla, say it again. C over B, remembering to change the sign on your C. C over B, changing the sign on your C. Negative pi over 8. Now, we've already changed the sign. So, on the coordinate plane, negative goes left. So, which one is the answer? Of course, it's dealing with pi over 8 anyway. A, alpha. And there you go. Some of you guys are just too darn shy. Negative pi over 8 or pi over 8 units to the left. Dig deep in your brains. It can be over this question or any of the previous 19. Is there something that's eating at you? Like, could you talk a little bit more about this topic? Or I had a question about this question. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Good question. If you remember, from that section, the formula was like this. It was like, if you have some, remember it gave you like all these letters, and it doesn't matter if it's sine or cosine, and it was like this, right? And it said C over B was the formula, as Kayla said, for phase shift. And this is how it was originally written, as a minus C. Well, and then Austin made the observation, wouldn't it be easier, and I said, yes, it would, good observation. He said, wouldn't it be easier just to make that a plus C and make this a minus C over B in the formula since it wants us to change the sign anyway? And I said, yes. So, what you may want to go back and do in your notes is just change that to a plus, and then you can just mark negative as part of the formula. But the reasoning behind it was, same thing for these horizontal shifts. Remember, if it was like x plus 2, you actually went to the left 2, and if it was x minus, same difference. Phase shift is horizontal, so you take the opposite of it. That's why. Good question. Other questions? From anything on this review? It was invigorating, wasn't it, Zach? It was. Okay, I'm going to post this online, and